The first study that used mindfulness-based cognitive therapy with depression, it was pretty spectacular. It was done at Oxford University, and it was done with people whose depression is so severe that nothing helps. No medication helps, electric shock doesn't help, medicine psychiatry doesn't know what to do. People get depressed very deeply, they recover and then they get depressed again. So with that group they use mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, and they found that it cut the rate of relapse, of having depression again, by 50%. If this were a drug, some pharmaceutical company would be making billions of dollars, but it's not a drug. It's free basically. So mindfulness-based cognitive therapy works very well for
If Wikipedia had been around a couple hundred years ago, we probably would have had an article that says that the sun revolves around the earth because that was what we understood to be true. We no longer understand that to be true thanks to advances in science and physics. But if tomorrow we were to wake up and learn that in fact time being relative really does upend the way that we think about the world, Wikipedia would have to evolve in order to describe that. So we're not really in the business of truth or facts, we're in the business of what is known, and what has been determined through consensus, scientific consensus or otherwise. And I think that that actually provides some clarity on how to understand what information you're looking at. One thing that I think is really unique about Wikipedia is there's only one version for the whole public. There's no feed that's curated for you or for me. We all are looking at
The listening is critical to the transformation. Parker Palmer said that, before I can tell my life what I want to do with it, I have to listen to my life telling me who I am. How many of us do that? So if we want to desire differently, mine your life for those stories when you are engaged in deeply meaningful and fulfilling action, and see if there's a pattern. I promise you, if you go through your life and you identify 3, 4, 5 of these fulfillment stories, you will probably begin to see a pattern emerge. And that's your life telling you something about where you find fulfillment in your desires. We usually want to get to the transformation and the change right away, but before we can go there, we have to simply take the time. Imagine that you are in charge of a company and are hiring for a new position. Here are the candidates. Without thinking about it too much, which one would you choose? My guess is that you went for one of those in the middle and avoided the people on the ends. Why? Because research shows that we tend to unconsciously think those toward in the middle of a group are more important. Some of the work has examined the TV quiz show, The Weakest Link, in which contestants stand in a semicircle and vote one another off. Those standing towards the middle of the semicircle won the game on average 45% of the time, whilst those standing the one of the ends won just 10% of the time. So if you want to make a good impression during a meeting, make sure you sit.
Recent studies do suggest that some of your personality is related to your genetics, but there are plenty of other factors, too. Many of these studies break down personality using the 5-factor model, or the Big Five. It puts personality traits into 5 general categories: extroversion, agreeableness, conscientiousness, openness to experience, and neuroticism. That last one is also sometimes called emotional stability. The degree to which each of these traits shows up in your personality is pretty stable, for the most part. But it does change throughout your life. For example, as people age, studies suggest that they tend to become more conscientious. And life events like getting married have been shown to increase emotional stability. So, sure, your personality can Each night your brain moves through several sleep cycles. At the start of each cycle you enter light sleep, then move into deep sleep, then dream, and finally move back into light sleep. These cycles take about 90 minutes each, and you will feel most refreshed if you wake up at the end of a cycle because then you are closest to your normal waking state. To increase the chances of this, decide when you want to wake up, then count back in 90-minute blocks until you find a time close to when want you to go to sleep. So let's imagine that you want to wake at 8 a.m. Chunking back in 90-minute blocks would look like this. And so you should aim to fall asleep around either 11 o'clock, or 12:30, at night. And so if you want to wake up feeling especially alert and refreshed, simply follow the computerized workplace can be hazardous to your health. If you don't take preventative measures today, we'll go over what some of these hazards are, and more importantly, what can be done about them. One major complaint, may be the biggest complaint of people who spend time at the computer, is eye strain. To help ease the strain on the eyes, the computer screen should be about 2 feet from your eyes. The entire screen should be in focus. The brightness and contrast should be adjusted for best readability. A good way to relieve eye strain is to look away from the screen. Frequently focus your eyes on objects that are far away, like something outside the building across the street, or the tree in the There have been several influential studies in pain management. Some of the most interesting of these study, endorphins, the body's own natural painkillers, for example. We now know that exercise stimulates the production of endorphins. Lack of exercise, on the other hand, not only shuts down endorphin production, but can also lead to muscle deterioration. This is why you see a lot of pain specialists prescribing exercise for patients with chronic pain. Another interesting area involves the power of the placebo effect. We've known for some time that a sugar pill or other inactive placebo can sometimes make a sick person feel better. Somehow the power of suggestion or faith in the doctor for the drug will start a process of healing. We now think a neural chemical component. What may actually happen is the placebo effect allows some people to sort of tap into the supply of endorphins. Each kind of insurance protects its policyholder against possible financial loss. Life insurance pays your family a certain sum upon your death. The purpose of life insurance is to provide your family with financial security and immediate estate that will allow them to maintain the household after you die. Health insurance protects you against large medical expenses. When you pay premiums to your insurance company, you can ensure payment of your medical bills. Another kind, property liability insurance, is sometimes called casualty insurance, because it covers the cost of accidents like automobile accidents, fire, and theft. If you're like most people, your home is the largest single investment you make in your life. This is why most homeowners have some type of property liability insurer.
Our knowledge of the oceans 100 years ago was confined to the two-dimensional shape of the sea surface. And the hazards of navigation presented by the irregularities in depth of the shallow water close to the land. The open sea was deep and mysterious, and anyone who gave more than a passing thought to the bottom confines of the oceans probably assumed that the seabed was flat. Sir James Clark Ross had obtained a sounding of over 2,400 fathoms in 1839. But it was not until 1869, when HMS Porcupine was put at the disposal of the Royal Society for several cruises, that a series of deep soundings was obtained in the Atlantic. And the first samples were collected by dredging the bottom shortly after this. The famous HMS Challenger expedition established the study of the seafloor as a subject worthy of the most qualified physicists and geologists. At burst of activity associated with the laying of submarine cables soon confirmed the Challenger's observation that many parts of the ocean were 2 to 3 miles deep, and the existence of underwater features of considerable